What is good, guys? It is Ollie back again on the Project Race Car YouTube channel. Hope you guys are all doing well, whatever you may be doing, whether you're a key worker and out and about, thank you very much for your service, or whether you're furloughed and bored and don't know what to do with yourself at home, well, thank you for watching this video. Today it's going to be, well, probably quite a special one because we've got so many good parts, so many cool parts coming for the Evo 5 rebuild. Finally going to get to see some of these parts that I've been stockpiling actually get used and then go into the build. I got something very cool from ETS arriving. It's currently on its way from the States, so that's going to be a really cool surprise, and it is gorgeous. I can't wait to get it and have a look at it. But this one should be pretty interesting, so we're going to get a lot done in this video, hopefully. I'm not going to list everything because I'm useless at listing, so we're just going to crack on with it, and in no particular order, let's go. I do just want to point out before I start that I apologise for the mic quality again. I still haven't got the adapter cable that allows me to use my shotgun with my phone, and unfortunately my camera's not here. It is with Engine Tuner down in Plymouth because they are currently dynamically balancing all of my rotating assembly ready for the bottom end to go back together again. So they've got my camera down there, so as far as cameras go, I think my phone is pretty darn good. I think it's more than up to the task of mostly doing whatever I need to do with YouTube in terms of filming, because quality, I think, is, well, you'd be hard pressed to tell a difference between my DSLR and my phone in the last machining video and the last Evo 5 episode that we made. So yes, anyway, enough waffle from me, let's go. So those of you who commented on last video, this is a bit of a DIY job, kind of like the car is. Thank you very much, Claire. I am addressing the hair issue. Thank you very much to my girlfriend's mum. Not a trained hairdresser. Okay, you join me from a very messy garage, but my 70mm throttle body arrived today. So what I'm going to do is it's designed to match up with all of the idle air control valve setup off of the stock throttle body. So I'm trying to remove these little Phillips head screws. Now I don't know what possessed Mitsubishi to make these Phillips heads when they could just make them 10mm bolt heads. I don't know, but they did, and it's proving to be a nightmare having to hammer a screwdriver in there to loosen them off. But we should be able to have that out and put it on the new throttle body. This is considerably bigger. It's going to be quite interesting sitting on the manifold, so yeah. Now that we're putting the head back together again, we're going to address one of the very few Achilles heels that Mitsubishi engines have, and it's not just the 4G63 that has these lifters. The 6Gs, quite a lot of the V6s, well, to be fair, quite a lot of Mitsubishi engines have these. Other manufacturers use the same design as well, but if you've ever worked or tuned or, you know, rebuilt Mitsubishi's, Evos in particular, you will know all too well what these are. Now these are hydraulic lifters, hydraulic lash adjusters, whatever you want to call them. They're not specifically a tappet because they don't have adjustable shims. These take up the slack between your rockers instead of having shims, but these are a real common failure point on the cylinder heads of the Evos. Now, a real common thing for failing lifters is quite a heavy quite a loud ticking noise coming from the top side of the engine, which can almost scare quite a lot of people because obviously, oh my god, my engine's making a ticking noise. Generally it's just these. They have quite small working internals and they generally get blocked up if you don't change the oil regularly enough or silly stuff like that. They also wear out. I can't tell which one it is because I've thrown them all in a bag together, but I did have one or two that were noisier than the rest, and they were causing quite a loud ticking noise from the top. But since we are rebuilding this engine, we have new uprated ones. They're covered in oil at the moment from Rossport, so I'm just going to drip everywhere, so I'm going to put it back in the oil now. But the way, if you were reusing these OEM ones, if your ones are good and fine, there's a bleeding procedure that you have to do to get the oil and the air out. Obviously when you took it apart, they will be fully in the upright position because of oil pressure, so you've got to put a pin in the end hole and pump the oil out, and then they collapse into their collapsed position so that you can put the cams in. If you don't do this, you won't be able to put the cams in because they'll be forcing the rockers up into the cams. With the new ones, they already arrive fully depressed because obviously they're brand new, so all I've got to do is put them in the lifter bores and job's a good one. Just a top tip, guys, if you are rebuilding an engine, it should be basic knowledge, and I hope that anybody of you that has rebuilt an engine before, just take the extra time to bag your stuff up, especially for your engines, for your engine bolts, which bolts go where. It just makes reassembly so much easier and much less time consuming. So I just wanted to point out a little issue that I've just ran into reassembling the cylinder head. I can't go all the way tonight because I don't have the rest of the gasket kits, and obviously I need the I need the cam seals that go against the head here and stuff before I can put the cam sprockets on, or gears, or whatever you want to say, belt, blah blah blah. So these are Calford 272s. I did buy them second hand. They are in very good condition though. I made sure that the buyer sent me pictures of them before I ended up pulling the trigger, but I got them for a very good price because they are second hand. Now the issue, and I don't know how well I'm going to be able to film this, but if I need to, then I'll put a picture up on the screen instead. If you look, oh, it's actually pretty good. The bolt for the cam position sensor in the stock cam, which is this one, is like a small M8 thread, whereas the bolt for the Calford cam position sensor is much bigger. Now I originally thought that was a bit strange, and I didn't quite know what to do, so I naturally, as you would, I posted up on my local Evo page, which is Evo Owners UK, and I'd like to give a big shout out to a chap called Reese Penfold, who's helped me quite a lot with questions that I've had about building this engine. And turns out all I've simply got to do is I've got to drill out the cam position sensor trigger wheel, which is this piece in my hand, to accept the larger 7, 8 and 9 trigger wheel bolt, which then goes in to the end of the Calford 272. So that explains why the bolt hole is bigger. They're just designed to accept the 7, 8 and 9 bolts, because technically the Calford 272s are made for Evo 7, 8s and 9s, but because the engine is the same in a 4, 5 and 6, they work for the 4, 5 and 6 as well. So yeah, I've just got to order a bolt and drill that out. So I didn't actually unfortunately get any footage, but I have just, with a 12mm drill bit, drilled out the cam sensor trigger wheel for the new bolt. Now if you do want to get these bolts, this bolt so that you can run the Kelford 272s for the later model Evo 8s in your Evo 4, 5 or 6. Then this is the part number, and I'll hold it here for a second, for said bolt, so that you can run the later model cams in your earlier engine. Okay, so by the time I'm finished, there won't be much of this engine left that I haven't touched. So this is the oil pump, and I was hoping to reuse the oil pump once I was putting this engine back together again. And the key word there is hoping, because this is quite a big part and it's cast aluminium and it just feels a bit of a waste to throw it away. But the reason I was going to check it is because if the clearance is basically from the factory on the manual, you put a straight edge across here and you put a straight edge across this gear here, and the actual clearance of the gears inside the housing is the factor whether we write this oil pump off or not. So I've got my straight edge here. Make sure that all your gasket surfaces are clean. For me, I haven't quite stripped it all off, so I'm going to go I'm going to go horizontally across here like that, and then I've got my feeler gauge set to 0.004 of an inch, and I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to poke it underneath, or try and poke it underneath on the oil pump drive gear, and it's tight, but it does ever so slightly go under, so that is still within spec. Pretty sure a 3/1000 will go under. Yeah, 3/1000 goes under quite happily, but that's to be expected. And between the casing and the actual gears, how far the gears sink into the actual casting in their little places where they're supposed to sit, you've got a clearance. Now, if that clearance is between 3 and 0.005 of an inch, then the oil pump gears in this side of the housing are within spec. Now, unfortunately, mine are in spec, or fortunately, but it's kind of unfortunate because I still can't reuse this pump, because if you look at the actual housing, and I bring it up close, if you look on the back here, you can see scoring marks on the actual mating face, and that means either the oil pump's picked some shit up and dragged it round, or it's, well, more than likely picked up something, or it's had the wrong oil in it at some point and it's scored the housing. But that basically means right there that this entire thing is junk. Now, the balance shafts obviously I'll take off and remove and reuse, because I am keeping the balance shafts in this engine. Personal preference, because I like the balance shaft idea. I know there's a few negative effects of it, but blah blah blah, I'll go into that in a later video. It just feels like a bit of a waste, considering this is still in spec, but oh well. A new pump is 225 quid, so I was hoping to save it, but I can't, so that's just going to go in the bin. Now, there is a little top tip with these. There is a Castle nut plug on the other side of here, which I'll try and turn it over so that you can see. That is the Castle nut plug. Don't mess with these. It's just not worth it. As soon as you mess with it, it leaks. But what you want to do is, when you take this apart, this gear goes onto this balance shaft with this bolt. Now, what you want to try and do is, if you're retaining the balance shafts with your engine, you need to remove the castle. Well, you don't need to, but most people, the service manual says you need to remove the castle plug in order to torque this bolt down on the end of the balance shaft. You don't. Put the gear, make sure that you line up where the gear is, because if you don't line these dimples up on the gears, your balance shaft will be out of time and you'll have a very bad day. So make sure that these are lined up. What you want to do is, because the balance shaft goes through like that, you want to mark this dimple on the other side of the gear with a Sharpie pen. And then what you can do is you can put the gear on the shaft and put it in the vise, and then torque that bolt down without removing the castle plug, and then you won't have any oil leaks, and it just makes everything so much easier.